saw my posture. Everybody else's posture is probably like this too, so I don't feel so bad. But we're going to open this up today, and that is what we are starting with today. We're going to be opening up the fronts of our shoulders, because if you saw me just a second ago, I was all slouched over. We're going to be stretching all this out. We've all been sitting, we're all on our phones, we're all on our computers doing that stuff. Everything is in front of us these days. How often do we reach up, open up our chests, move our spines around? So we got to open things up. We're going to stretch. We're going to actually do a lot of stretching at the beginning here. We're going to be doing some chest stretches and some posterior rotator cuff stretches. We're going to get your lats involved too, just to start. Let's see here, stressed and slouched. That is quite the combination. Yeah, but slouching actually makes you feel more stressed. I read that a couple years ago. And so if you can actually change your body language, you can actually change the hormonal responses and chemical responses in your brain. So even just sitting up has the potential to make us feel happier. And then we'll go and we'll conquer the world just by sitting up. Maybe even standing up, that might be good too. So we are, like I said, we're going over some stretching. If you have a foam roller, you can use it. We're going to use it for probably one or two things today. It's not necessary. I'll give you some alterations if you need them. But for the most part, we're going to be on our backs, a little bit on your side, and a lot of it on your hands and knees. So make those modifications for those of you who have some wrist pain. A lot of the stuff can be done on your forearms if needed. There's one or two things I think that might need to be sat out, but that's, we're only going to do everything for about a minute here. So I'm going to get started. I'm moving back. If you can't hear me, I know there were some technical difficulties with the sound last time. I don't know. I think it was because my phone was literally on 1% the whole time. So I'm going to move back there. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Everybody can hear me good? Good? Okay. All right, so first things first. We are going to do a stretch. We did this, I think, 2 weeks ago, where we're stretching out the fronts of our shoulders. We're going to be stretching out our biceps. You might start to get some numbness and tingling in your hands. If you can tolerate it, then you want to stick with it. If the tingling or the burning or the numbness or the discomfort in the front of your arms is too much, you're just going to back off a little bit. To get started, we're actually going to be on our butts. We're going to have our hands facing away. So we're going into external rotation because we're internally rotated on our devices all day. We're going to open up our chest and put your fingers facing behind you. And from here, we're just going to scoot our, here we go, stay in the frame. I'm going to scoot my butt forward until I feel a big stretch in the front of my chest and down my arms. And I can get a little bit further than I could a couple weeks ago. I have been working on standing up more throughout my day. And I'm just feeling a good stretch right in the front of my shoulder and my arm. And we're going to be going for 60 seconds here. I'm keeping my chest up. Okay, if I just slouch down here, I'm actually just reinforcing the problem. So my shoulder is going to dump forward. So I want to keep my chest up, and if you can't do that, just move your butt back a little bit until you can. And just keep your head in a nice relaxed position, wherever it kind of goes. If you want to go back here, be my guest. It's not recommended, but that's okay. And so we're just here for another 5-6 seconds. Oh, all right, and that's one of the few times where I don't mind if your rib cage flares, because we're trying to get excessive extension in your thoracic spine. As we sit like this all day, we're going to want to remind it that it has the ability to go backwards. And we're going to get into that in a couple minutes, though. The next stretch is going to be a child's pose. And if you tuned in last week, we talked about how the thoracic spine has to be able to side bend. It needs to be able to flex on one side and extend on the other, like this. To do that, we need to make sure that we can continue to side bend. And people who struggle side bending also usually struggle with rotation or extension. And so making sure that we can still side bend is crucial. It's another input into the system that can maybe help us gain some extension or rotation. If we can't work in those positions, but we can still side bend, we can still influence those other movements. Now to do this, we're going to do a modified child's pose. And if your knees and hips bother you with this one, you can still do it up here, but I'm going to sit back. And you're going to go down, arms reach out, and here we're going to be stretching our lats too. And you're going to reach over to one side. And you're going to give it a good breath. And out. And then you're going to the other side. And we're going to do 8 to each side. And you're trying to get more range of motion with each one, more side bend. And you'll feel a nice big stretch under here. This is great because we're putting our arms over our head, but it's in a controlled manner. So if it hurts to typically maybe overhead press, this might be a great way to kind of ease back into it and stretch out those tissues that are bothering you. And I think I'm about halfway there. If you're done already, just sit back, relax, enjoy the show. And we're just taking our time. Remember to breathe. Try to go farther with each one. I've been having some right shoulder pain, and my right side feels a little bit tighter than my left. I think I got 2 more. And last one for me. Okay. Now, already, I feel pretty good. I feel like my back is a little bit more mobile. I know that my arms are going up with a lot more ease than they were even just 5 minutes ago. But we're going to carry on. The show must go on. And we're going to be going over cobras with a head rotation. Now, this cobra is a great way to remind your thoracic spine that extension exists. Because it's like when we're sitting around all day, sorry, my contact's still dry. When we're sitting around all day and we're here and our spine is flexed, our nervous system starts saying, oh, this is a pretty good baseline. It's really passive, it's efficient, it's easy. You can stay focused on whatever you're doing. And the nervous system kind of forgets that this map or this area of extension exists in your body. And so we want to remind it, we want to stimulate the proprioceptors that we have in our spine and remind them that, hey, extension exists. And cobras are great for that. And I also think cobras are great because you can make it yours. Okay, we all have our little sweet spot for these stretches and mobility things. And so you can make it yours. You're going to lay down on your belly and you're going to bring your hands underneath your shoulders. And now some of you might be able to only push up here and then turn your head. Maybe your spine is really, really tight. Maybe it's stiff. Maybe you sit a lot. Maybe you're just getting back into fitness or mobility or stretching, and that's great. And this is just yours. This, if this is all you have, is just as good as up here. And we're going to go up and down 8 times and look over each shoulder. And when you do this, when you're up, you're going to want to try to turn that elbow pit to face forward. So you see, this rounded position is going to want to make me shrug. That's not really good. We're here to make your neck and your shoulders feel better, not worse. Okay? So you want to turn those elbow pits forward. And you might not even be able to do that. And this is going to come back to bite you in the butt in a minute here. But it also might be one of the reasons why you have elbow or wrist pain. If you can't get your elbow pits forward, you're going to start compensating. But we'll talk about that in a second. Breathing out, turning your head. Looking over to each side, we're waking up the neck muscles. We're saying, hey, you are about to work in a minute here. Let's wake up a little bit. But we're also reminding our spines of extension. We're saying, hey, remember me? I'm really good for turning, side bending, going back and opening up the anterior part of our body or our core. The next one we're doing is going to be a sleeper stretch. Now, a sleeper stretch is a little controversial in the PT world. Some people say it impinges your shoulder. I tend to actually think that it helps stretch the muscles in the posterior and lateral portion of your shoulder, and the ramifications of doing it are not negative. I do think that most people actually feel a lot better. They gain a lot of range of motion, and they're not doing anything detrimental to their shoulder when they do this. But just like all this stuff, if anything bothers you while you do it, just put it aside, okay? Just stop. Work on your breathing, maybe find a position that you enjoy. And so the sleeper stretch is going to be on your side. And if you have a foam roller, you can use it as a pillow. Got one here. Or you can use a mat, whatever it is, or you can just use your arm. Not your arm, because you're going to be stretching it, sorry. but you're going to be on your side, and I have my chest vertical. It's up towards the ceiling. I'm not rolled back, and I'm not going to want to roll forward because that's going to cause too intense of a stretch in the back of my shoulder. And you'll see that my bottom arm is out towards the camera, and then I bring my hand up towards the ceiling. I take my top hand and I push my bottom wrist towards the floor. And we're just going to hang out here for 60 seconds. Now, things you want to look out for as you push down, if it feels really tight, a lot of us are going to start rotating back because it feels better. I want you to resist that, okay? I want you to keep your chest upright. And you're just going to push down as far as you can while feeling a stretch kind of on the cap of your shoulder. And so we're just hanging out here, hanging. We're going to be here, for, like I said, 1 minute. I'm not trying to, there's no rule book that says, oh man, you got to get your hand to the floor. That's not a good goal. A great goal for this stretch is to just do what you can tolerate. And that goes for every stretch, every exercise. You do as good as you can do, and gradually over time, you'll see improvements. And so we're just hanging out here another 15 seconds, and then we're going to switch sides. Hello, everybody joining. We're just going over a lot of stretching to start before we get into some shoulder stability exercises and some neck exercises, for the most part, with our hand on the ground, something we call closed chain. And we're going to be doing these in developmental positions, crawling, or a side plank, things like that, things we all go through when we're an infant, but are great at reestablishing certain movement patterns. We're going to go to the other side, do the same stretch. Feels really good to lay down. Don't usually get to do this in the middle of the day, so maybe we'll just stop here, just take a nap. And just stretching. I got a little bit more range of motion on this side and internal rotation, but I do lack external rotation. A lot of times people are like, oh my God, I am lacking range of motion in one direction, but it's great in the other. As a PT, all I'm really looking for is your total range of motion, so your ability to internally and externally rotate. Is it even? I don't really mind if you have more internal rotation on one side. Maybe you were a baseball player. Maybe you were a throwing athlete. Or if you have more external rotation, same thing. We just want to make sure that your total range of motion is pretty close. Got about 20 seconds left here. Just keeping my chest and torso upright towards the ceiling, not rolling back, not rolling forward. I'm not letting my elbow drop down here. It's up at shoulder level. Okay. So, we've done a bunch of stretching. And now we're going to start getting into cats and camels. This first one is for all of us, and if we don't have a foam roller laying around, we're going to do two variations of a cat camel. But for all of us right now, we're going to do something called a short cat camel. So I'm down, I'm going to sit down on my heels. Now if this bothers you, you can just do regular cat camels. Still going to be going after your thoracic spine. You're going to get a little bit more lumbar movement than the rest of us though. And so from here, I'm going to put my hands down right in front of my knees. And based on the position that I'm in, I'm going to get most of this movement in my upper back, and that's what we're looking for, because today's neck and shoulder day, and the thoracic spine is very, very important to both of those. So from here, I'm going to push away, and look at all that movement that occurs in my thoracic spine, or my upper back. Then I'm going to kind of pull my arms into my knees, and I get some extension. And then I push away, separating my shoulder blades, making sure my shoulder blades are kind of rounding around my body so I can get as much flexion in my spine too. I know we do it all day, but how often do you actually force it? We're usually just passively going into flexion. We're working on waking up all the muscles around the shoulder, the upper back, and even the neck. I think I said we're doing 10, maybe 8 of these. We'll land somewhere near there. Making sure that you're moving your head with it. Okay, that was like 8, 9, or 10. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a physical therapist, not an accountant. Okay, so if you have your foam roller, it doesn't matter if it's one of those really long ones or if it's one of these really short ones. And if you need a foam roller, you can click the link in my Instagram profile and it will lead you to buying this one. and a bunch of other stuff that we will eventually use, like a massage ball and a massage stick and all that stuff, just in case you need one, or you can just go to Amazon. But these guys are going to be used now to roll our thoracic spine. And so you're going to put it perpendicular to your upper back, and we're going to stay between the area of the shoulder blades, because that's where our thoracic spine lives for the most part, where our ribs come in and they attach to our spine. Let's see if you guys can see this right there. Good. And I'm actually going to give myself a nice big hug, because that's going to get my shoulder blades out of the way, so I can expose the processes of my spine a little bit more, and also the musculature that's on either side. And we're just going to try to stretch out through rolling up and down like 10 times. Nothing crazy. Now the rest of you don't have foam rollers. I still want you to be doing cats and camels, and we'll catch up to you guys in a second here. And I'm getting some cracks and pops. Oh man, it feels good. And we're also working on our anterior neck strength here. If you got a weak neck, foam rolling your thoracic spine is a great way to strengthen it. And that was about 10. So then I'm going to put my butt down, but I'm going to keep my foam roller here. Now, if you don't have your foam roller at home, you can be laying on your back to do these. It's going to be a little less strenuous, so this is kind of a more advanced way of strengthening our neck muscles. So for this one, I want to make sure that your ribs stay down. And what do I mean by that? If I go back and I let my ribs flare, I think you might be able to see it on there, I'm getting just most of this motion in my thoracic spine, where for this exercise, I want to get most of it in my neck. And so I'm going to put my hands on my ribs and make sure that they stay down in my abdomen area. I'm going to drop my head down, I'm going to lift my head up, and turn. And this is pretty stressful, so we're only going to do 5 of these. Ribs down, back, up, and turn. Each side, building on those cobras that we did before. And 2 more. If you're laying on your back doing these, it's the same move, except you're not at risk of extending your thoracic spine. I think that was 4. And oh, my head is getting heavy. Must be all that knowledge. And let's see here. Let's look at what we're doing today. Boom, 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 boom. And we are done with the foam roller. If you didn't have one, doesn't matter. If you're done with it, or if you did, all done with it. So we're going to start going into the quadruped positions, or hands and knees. And like I said before, if you have wrist pain, this is probably not going to be the position for you, but you can modify it by going down instead of here to here. A lot of these things you can still do here. And I'll tell you the one that you probably can't modify, and maybe you should just try it. I'll see if we can find a way for you to do it still. But we're going to be on our hands and knees. As far as toes go, like if you want to work on your big toe mobility, great, have your toes tucked under. For today, because we're focusing mostly neck and shoulder, I'm good with you having your toes this way too. That's up to you. But we're hands and knees. You're going to take your hand, you're going to come underneath and rotate. I just got another pop, man. I reach, and then I come back up. Hand goes on the back of my head. I'm pushing away with my down arm, and I open up to the ceiling. And then I reach through, and I'm up here. And we're gonna go for 8 on each side. Now, if putting your arm up here hurts to rotate, instead of putting it up, you're gonna put it on your low back. And there's your modification. It's a lot less stressful to the rotator cuff and the shoulder if you have any issues going on. So that might be something you want to try if this is bothering you a little bit. But we're going through and we're doing 8 on each side. I'll try to catch up. But it's not a race. I just want to not leave you guys hanging. It is okay to bend this elbow. It's all good. But remember to push away with that supportive arm. And yes, we're flexing our spine, but we're also extending. I know that was 7. That's fine. We're going to do the other side. Reach through. And open. Turning your head with it. 3. Or if you can get that moving shoulder down to the ground, awesome. Maybe stretch out your posterior rotator cuff, posterior deltoid, and the muscles between your shoulder blade and your spine. Muscles that we call your paraspinals, or excuse me, your periscapulars, and your rhomboids and your mid-traps and your low traps. And I think that was 6, 2 more. 7, oh man. Okay, all right. Now, we're still gonna be on our hands and knees. But we're gonna focus a little bit more on just moving our shoulders. And we talked a little bit during your cobras about owning internal and external rotation of your shoulder. And if you can't do it, you're gonna have to compensate by pronating and supinating your wrist. And so if you're doing things like overhead presses, maybe pull-ups, push-ups, anything that you're supporting yourself, and you can't actually externally rotate your arm, you're gonna put a ton of stress through the distal structures of your wrist, okay? Or of your hand and your wrist. And it might start to talk, it might get really, really painful, and that's when you have to start modifying because you've irritated that tissue too much. So we have to look at the shoulder if our wrist and our elbow are bothering us. They're just too closely related, so we have to see what's going on. And this drill might highlight some things for you if you are having some of that wrist pain. Now, if it's too uncomfortable, just skip right over it. We'll deal with it another day. But you're gonna put your hands down. I'll do it from this side. So you guys can see my elbow pits, okay? I want you to watch my shoulders. So I'm gonna internally rotate, and those elbow pits kind of go away. They start to rotate back. And then I show them to you. And we're going away. We were doing these kind of with your cobras earlier because that external rotation wants to pull my shoulders down away from my ears. And this internal rotation wants to make them go up. But I'm gonna ask that you just try to push away from the ground, and you're gonna rotate, externally rotate, and then internally rotate. And externally rotate as hard as you can, and internally rotate. And let's go for 5 more with control. Maybe your wrists are just like screaming at you. They're like, what are you doing to us, Mike? Maybe that highlights how you need to work on your shoulder internal and external rotation to make your wrists feel better. Because your wrists are probably just at the mercy of everything else that's going on up the chain. And we got 1 more. And maybe you feel all the muscles underneath in your armpit going crazy, helping you externally rotate. And that is a good thing. Okay, so we just went through internal and external rotation of our shoulder in a closed chain. And if that was bothersome on your wrists, but you still want to try it, you can do really light pressure. So most of the pressure is on my legs here, and I can still do it here. And eventually you're going to want to be able to do it in an open chain. You're going to want to make sure that you can actually internally and externally rotate your shoulder. It's important for almost everything we do with our arms. And now we are going to do a quadruped push-up plus. So instead of putting you in a push-up position, which is really stressful, and we're going to do a high plank after this, so I want to kind of spare your wrists and your shoulders and your back, all that stuff, we're just going to go hands and knees. And now a push-up plus is typically you're in your push-up position and you push up between your shoulder blades. You've done your push-up and then you get that little extra bit. So we're just doing the little extra bit for 5 reps, and then we're going to add a neck movement into it. And so we're working on some shoulder depressors, shoulder blade depressors. So these are your shoulder blades on your back. These guys help pull them down away from your ears, but they also protract. And that's actually the move that we make when we reach forward. Our shoulder blade goes around our body. We can't keep it down and back and reach our arm up without creating more pinch in our shoulder. So we want to actually have our shoulder blade be able to kind of scoop around our body. And sometimes it goes up, and that's okay. But what we don't want is this thing, where you got this like L shape here, and you got the big shrug. You need to see a physical therapist or a rehab professional if that's what's going on. So we're going to be at hands and knees. You're going to dip between your shoulder blades like you're doing the cow portion of a cat-cow. And then you're going to push up. And look at where my elbow pits are. They're forward. Yay, we're starting to build things on each other. And then we go down and up. And we're only doing 5 of these because we'll end up doing 10, but we're just going to do 5 like this. I think that's 3 or 4. Call it 3. 4 and 5. Now, I'm going to hold the top of this one. I'm going to bring my head down, let's see, neutral. I'm not flexing and I'm not extending, I'm just neutral. And from here, I'm gonna do one more, and then I'm gonna chin tuck. So I'm pushing my hands away, but I'm pulling my head back. I'm elongating the back of my neck. And I go down, up, tuck. And if you can't get the tuck, just work on the push-up plus. You got 3 more. Okay. Whew. Not as easy as it sounds. And so we're pushing, we're protracting, which is actually going to lock out our thoracic spine a little bit, so we're not going to get a lot of movement. And then you're trying to retract, where a lot of times when people try to retract, watch my spine, they go here, and they're extending their spine. Well, I'm forcing you to go into flexion a little bit with your thoracic spine. We're using all the muscles to stabilize, and then I'm asking you to retract. So we're getting a more accurate assessment of your ability to actually retract your neck when we do that exercise. So we're working on a little bit of mobility and strengthening in the neck. And as promised, we're moving on to a high plank position. So this is once again building on everything we've been doing up till now, where we were quadruped on our hands and knees, and now we're going to go into this high plank position. And we're going to start rocking our body. It looks like I'm moving my hands, but when I'm on my hands and knees, you'll see that I'm going to be rocking my body forward and back a little bit while pushing away. Still working on those serratus anterior muscles underneath here that help glue our shoulder blades to our body, but also depress them and protract around our body so we can put our arms over our heads better. We can create more space in our shoulders so all the tendons don't get frayed and crack and pop. I get that question all the time, is it okay if it cracks and pops? And it is until it isn't. Okay, so if it doesn't hurt, I'm not too concerned about it. But then if you have all the cracking and popping and it really hurts while you're doing it, that's when I start to become concerned as a therapist. So we want to give your tendons and your muscles as much freedom to move in your shoulder joint as possible, and that's done by keeping good posture and making sure that your muscles and tendons are as long and as healthy as possible. And so we're going to go into a push-up position. For those of you whose wrists hurt, this one's fine to do on your forearms. You are still going to get the benefits. I just like having that extended position because I know that I can externally rotate my elbows or my upper arm a little bit better in that high plank position. It's really, really impossible to do it with your forearms down on the ground. But you're going to be up in your plank position, your core's tight, your butt's tight, and I'm going to rock forward. And I'm still pushing away from the floor, and then I rock back, and we're going to make 10. So I'm always pushing away from the floor as much as I can. Elbow pits are forward, and I rock forward and back. And it's with control. And so you see how if you have wrists that are bothering you, this is not going to be the one you want to do. And I've got 6 more. Always pushing away. If you feel like you're slouched, just reset, take that break. Really, I'm just telling you that so I can take a break because this is tough. And so we're up here, we got 5 more. 1, always pushing away. Fingers are facing straight ahead. We're not externally rotated. We're not faking external rotation. We want to actually get it by using our muscles. 3 more. 1, my butt is staying down. 2, I'm pushing away. 3. Okay. So, we've come to side planks. We've done all the quadruped stuff. We've done all the stuff on your wrists until the last thing here where we're going to be crawling, and crawling can also be done on your forearms. It's more like an army crawl, but we're going to be going sideways today. But before we do that, we're going to do some side planks, and the side plank is going to be done with a little bit of rotation through our shoulder because it's going to strengthen and put input or stress to the muscles between your shoulder blade and your spine, those muscles I told you about before. So as we tilt forward on our stable arm, those muscles are going to lengthen, but they're still going to have to work to provide stability. So we're working on them eccentrically, but we're still in a closed chain position. This is kind of how we develop that stability, that stabilization that allows us to crawl, pull ourselves up when we're a little baby so we can gradually start to run away from our parents. But we're going to be down here. We're just going to be making 8 rotations on each side with 1 held side plank. And it's not a legs extended side plank. I don't like that because the balance requirements kind of take away from all the effort we're going to be making in our shoulder. So you're going to have your hips bent to about 45 degrees. What the hell does that mean, Mike? It means basically bend your knees so your heels are in line with your butt. That'll get you to roughly the correct place. You're then going to go up and push your hips forward, kind of like you're at the top of a deadlift or a squat or a military press. So I'm squeezing my butt, I'm lifting my hip up, adjust my position just a little bit, and I'm going to rotate forward on my shoulder. I'm pushing my down hand into the floor, trying to get away from the floor as I roll towards it, and there's 1. We're going to make 8 of these. 2. Slow and controlled. 3. Eccentrically strengthening those muscles. 4. And I'm palm down or I'm making a fist. Either one's okay. 5. 6. Smile for the camera. 7. And we got the last one coming. Oh boy. 8. Okay. So we're going to switch. We're going to do the same 8. Maybe you feel a difference side to side. Maybe your trunk is a little bit weaker on one side, and that makes your shoulder have to work harder. Maybe your shoulder is a little weaker, and you want to shrug, and you shouldn't be moving, and you just hold the side plank. All that stuff's okay. We're going to set up. We're going to go up and start rotating. Pushing my hand down into the floor. 2. Slow and controlled. 3. 4. 4 more. 1. 2. 3. And last 4. So your hips stay high, you're stable through your shoulder, you're stable through your trunk. We're incorporating all areas of our body with just a focus on one. Doesn't mean the rest of it can be neglected. So we've come to the last exercise, and this last exercise, once again, is done on your hands and knees, well, hands and feet. But we start on our hands and knees. And so if your wrists are bothering you, you go onto your forearms. It's still doable. And we're going to be doing a lateral crawl. We're going to start incorporating both sides of our brains. We're going to be going through neuromuscular re-education of our entire body. We're going to open up our brains to learn movement better by incorporating both sides of our body at the same time. That's why things like chops and lifts and bilateral lifts are great, because they really stimulate the motor and premotor cortexes of our brains. It makes it more receptive to learning movements. Crawling is unbelievable at creating shoulder stability, trunk stability, mobility in our shoulders as well, because remember, we have to have good mobility in our shoulder because it's set up as a ball and socket, but with that mobility, we have to have tons of stability or control. So the more mobile a joint is, the more stable that joint actually has to be. Stability meaning control, okay? A rigid joint, like your sacroiliac joint, doesn't have lots of stability. It's just very rigid and stiff, and that's how it should be. So we're gonna go onto our hands and knees. Let's see if you can see me. How is this gonna be? Okay, so you're on your hands and knees. I got a phone call. All right, so we're gonna be on our hands and knees. You're gonna pop your knees up, and as we do this, we're gonna start moving one hand in the opposite foot. And so as I go sideways, I'm gonna move my my left foot, my right arm, and then switch. So we're working in opposites. And basically, as my hands go wider, my feet come together. And then as my feet go wider, my hands come together. That's one way that you'll start to progress. And we're gonna make 5 steps in one direction, and 5 steps in the other, and then we're done. So here we go. So I'll start with my hands together and my feet apart. I'm gonna bring my feet together and my hands apart. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and we'll go down and back one more time. 1, 2, 3. We're trying to have stable hips. I'm kind of a little rocky There we go. That was a reciprocal pattern. Oh, I'm wiped out, as I'm sure a lot of you are, and that's okay. All right, so everything go okay? Who am I quarantined with? I'm quarantined with my beautiful pregnant wife. Challenge you to do partner shoulder ride squat. I don't know what that is, but it sounds risky. Let's see here, guys. Okay, I'm gonna work my way through here, these comments. Oh, thanks, Gretch. All right, anybody, if you have any questions, please, please, please reach out. Let's see, why can't you stretch your head back too? For a neck stretch, you can. Definitely tilt your head back to get an anterior stretch in your neck. Let's see here. Okay, so if any of you have any questions, please reach out to me in my direct messages on Instagram. That's Kinetic Potential PT. My email address is kineticpotentialpt@gmail.com, and my YouTube channel is Kinetic Potential Physical Therapy. So if you guys reach out on any of those, you can find all my follow-along videos on YouTube. They're also posted on my Instagram. They're just broken up a little bit into certain segments, so maybe they're a little bit more digestible in 15-minute increments, maybe a little bit less. Maybe if I feel like a little nugget, 2 to 3 minute video is worth you guys seeing, then I break that out too. The live on elbows, Natalie, if I do a video and post it to YouTube, is that good too? If I just throw that up there instead of doing a live, it's going to be hard to fill that 40 minutes. I probably could, but it would be elbows and wrists together. And your shoulders for that matter, because they are so important. They are linked, as I showed you with your hands being on the ground and trying to internally and externally rotate your shoulder. It's going to affect your wrists. Okay, Natalie, great. So yes, I am working on putting together a little series for wrists and elbows. Once again, it's going to involve your shoulder. And I'll get that up to YouTube. It's actually in the works. It's in my written out exercises in my planner. I just have not filmed it. Forge Golf Performance, thanks for watching. Double jointed elbows need help. Yes, you need control, 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 not mobility, but it can lead to other issues up and down the chain. So that was today's follow along live clinic for neck and shoulder pain. We did everything closed chain. I think that, let's see, the sleeper stretch might have been the only thing that was open. So once again, this is going to be posted to my YouTube. I'm going to break it down to Instagram, make it a little bit more digestible. So if you have any questions, always feel free to ask. I'll try to get back to you in a day. So this is signing off for Wednesday. On Friday, we're going over hip and knee stuff, really specifically for runners, okay? I know that you guys are kind of quarantined and chomping at the bit and you can't get to your gyms, and so there's going to be, or I have had a lot of questions about runners. It's going to be mostly stretching and mobility because we're putting so much strain on our joints when we do run. So I will see you guys on Friday. That's 3 p.m. Pacific time, but then you can find me for the next 24 hours on live and all the time on YouTube. So you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoy your dinners out there, and I'll see you guys on Friday.